When my ex chose to leave without paying but made the mistake of leaving his car at the place I picked him up from, I drove him back, took his wallet, made him settle the full bill, and tipped the waitress, who was crying in the back, $30. A guy tried to convince me that I couldn't get pregnant while he was on antibiotics and didn't need to use a condom. It would have been our first time being physical, but I backed out when he refused to explain why he was taking the meds. Pretty sure I dodged a bullet. My period started while we were having dinner, and he asked me to hold it. I dated a woman who was kind and feisty, but not very sharp. One weekend, we went for a walk, and I casually mentioned the moon, which was visible that day. She paused, staring at it, and said, "That can't be the moon." After some gentle questioning, I discovered she thought the sun and the moon couldn't appear at the same time. The sun and moon were the same thing. The moon was just the sun, after it ran out of fuel. This led to a series of other misunderstandings, misbeliefs, light conspiracy theories, etc. We had some fun teasing each other, but the more I learned, the more I felt sorry for her and started holding back. My best friend's ex believed that a cloud-based service existed in actual clouds and was genuinely worried about losing his data when it rained. He was 19 and working in the trades. I took her out to eat, offering two choices, an Italian place or a regular spot that served various dishes. She said she hated Italian food, so we went with the general restaurant, where she ordered lasagna. While we were in the forest talking about a potential pregnancy scare, she wanted to knock on wood. She walked up to a tree and asked me, "This is wood, right?" Bless her heart, thank goodness she wasn't pregnant. This was a while ago, in the 90s. But a guy invited me over for dinner, claiming he'd make scallops. I love seafood, so I was in. He ended up making Betty Crocker scalloped potatoes. Yes, from a box. And they weren't even done right. They were still crunchy in the middle. But I met his roommate that day, and we've been married for almost 30 years now. So it wasn't a total disaster. We had a heated argument over whether dinosaurs lived during the American Revolution. Her position was, there's really no way to know. I came home to find her upset about a news story she saw about a new execution method being approved somewhere. I can't remember where, maybe Ohio. She explained how a person sits in a seat. A grabber arm activates automatically. And each prong gets a topical anesthetic applied to numb the area and make it painless before it twists their head off. There was more to the explanation, but about 30 seconds in, it was obvious this was not a real thing. I tried reassuring her, but it sparked an argument. She later sent me the video, which turned out to be from The Onion. It wasn't real, not even a clever satire, just foolish. Even after I showed her where it came from and explained what The Onion does, she still insisted that the news couldn't make things up. I ended up leaving her that week. We were watching Shrek, and she couldn't believe that the person voicing Shrek was the same actor who played Austin Powers because their accents are different. I explained it was the same actor using different voices. She couldn't understand it. When I told her that Austin Powers' voice wasn't even the actor's real voice, that was too much for her to grasp. I once dated a college girlfriend who didn't quite have adult life skills. One time, she got a flat tire while driving by herself and just stood by the car, looking helpless until a guy stopped and helped her. He changed the tire, but unbeknownst to her, he set the parking brake. When she got in, her car wouldn't move because the brake was on. She rushed out and asked the guy, "My car won't go. Did you put the wheel on backwards?" She actually told everyone that. They put shrimp in my food to test if I was really allergic to seafood or just being dramatic. I had an anaphylactic reaction, used my EpiPen, and went to the hospital. The hospital suggested I press charges, but they never acknowledged what they did was wrong and never apologized. We were watching the movie C7N, where each murder represents one of the 7 deadly sins. The first victim was killed by being force-fed, and the big reveal was when they discovered the sin written on the wall behind a fridge or something. I'll never forget the sound of this guy's voice as they moved the fridge, and he started to realize what sin it was. Oh, gluten. She claimed the temperature in her house never changed, so she couldn't understand why she was always either too hot or too cold. It turned out she hadn't removed the packaging from her digital thermometer, so she was just staring at a sticker that said 72 degrees. My Hispanic date told me she would never marry a black man because she didn't want Puerto Rican children. Edit. She wasn't joking. We were talking about my dog, who was about to be spayed, and the aftercare, like having stitches on her abdomen. He was completely puzzled about why she would have stitches there. I asked him how he thought a female dog was spayed. His answer was, "Don't they just sew it closed?" I got into a big argument with my girlfriend because I pointed out a bear crossing sign. She called me an idiot, saying there was no way there were bears in Michigan. I reminded her we were heading to Sleeping Bear Dunes. This led to us debating whether there were bears in our hometown, also in Michigan. I said yes, but she insisted there couldn't be bears there, and I was dumb for thinking otherwise. We had a ridiculous fight over it. A week later, there was a car accident near her house where a car hit a bear. I sent her the article, and that started another argument. In my early 20s, I moved in with my boyfriend. When I got my period, he demanded to know what happened to the egg. This 21-year-old man, whose mother was a nurse and who had a sister who had just given birth to twins, thought that women laid an egg when they got their period. I met a cute girl and asked her for directions to her place. This was before cell phones or GPS, so she told me, go past the train tracks, take the second left, then the third right, the second right, then the second left. My house is the white one. I followed her directions 3 times, only to end up in the middle of nowhere. Just for fun, I reversed her directions, left for right, right for left, and found her place on the first try. During the date, she also told me she wanted to be a veteran because she loved working with animals. Google had an April Fool's joke one year claiming that if you licked your phone screen, you could taste whatever was on the screen. She tried it several times and said it didn't work. In college, I dated a guy who was nice but pretty clueless. He had some strange habits, the worst of which was owning only one towel, which he rarely washed, maybe once every few months. It was as stiff as sheet metal and as rough as a cat's tongue. For Christmas, I bought him 2 more bath towels, a hand towel, and several washcloths. When he opened the gift, he looked at it like a confused goat facing a new fence and said, "But I already have a towel." He truly couldn't understand why anyone would need more than one, since it gets cleaner every time you use it. She kept insisting that it's disgusting not to have a regular period because that's how the cooch gets clean. And I was gross for not having one for a long time due to the birth control I was using for him. I have an ex-wife who pretended to be allergic to chocolate. Spoiler, she wasn't. One year for my birthday, we went out with friends and family. I offered her some coconut shrimp, which she eagerly accepted. Moments later, she made an awful sound and spat the shrimp out onto the table. She screamed, "Was that coconut shrimp?" When I confirmed, she shouted, "Coconut! Coconut!" loudly, trying to embarrass me in front of everyone. After the laughter died down, I asked her if she really thought there was cocoa in coconut. We're divorced now, thankfully. She thought I was just being a picky eater and didn't really have a gluten sensitivity. She told me she'd ordered a gluten-free version of a dish I wanted, but didn't. She watched me eat it to catch me lying. I ended up in the hospital in a foreign country. 3 weeks later, I was diagnosed with celiac disease, and she lost a girlfriend. After almost 6 months, I decided to introduce him to my critical friends. We were having a great time at the bar when one of them whispered, "He's a keeper." I was thrilled they were getting along. But then, out of nowhere, he said, "Well, the Earth is flat." And he knew this because of YouTube. I've sailed around the world in the Navy, and my friend is a long-haul pilot, but he just kept citing YouTube. I thought he was joking, but he was serious. I took him home, dropped him off, and never saw him again. So, still single. He kept littering, and I really hate littering. One day, he spat his gum out on the sidewalk at the zoo. I called him out, and he said, "It'll evaporate." I laughed, saying, "That's funny, but seriously, you should use a trash can." When he gave me a puzzled look, I realized he wasn't kidding. He was convinced trash evaporates in the sun, and we had a full-on debate about it. Edit. The real idiot was me because I stayed with him for 3 years after that.